just saying. Good.
Welcome, everybody. Anybody here for the first time tonight? Welcome, some new faces. Welcome back. Welcome to everybody. Welcome anybody joining us online for the first time. Welcome back to everybody else. I'd like to begin by class most weeks, almost every week, asking you to talk to each other. At home, I put you in a breakout room on Zoom. In the room, ask you to talk to each other about a topic that I throw out in service of Against the Stream, this meditation center being a place where you meet people and make some connections rather than just meditate, listen, and leave. It's a core tenet of Buddhism to develop Sangha. The Buddhist word is Sangha, which means community, fellowship, connection with each other. So I do that by making you talk to each other. That's the way you connect. You start to meet each other rather than just meditate and leave. I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things tonight, but the general topic that I have in mind is about dependent origination, which is about karma, which is about everything is conditioned. Everything that happens is conditioned by something that has happened before, how we respond. And then part of the topic, and I'm going to somehow get there in the talk tonight, but part of the question is how much free will do we actually have? What do you think about it? Do you think you have complete free will? Are you totally in charge of all of your reactions? Do you ever find yourself reacting in a way where you're like, or afterwards you're like, I don't want to act like that, but I felt out of control. I was just being reactive. I was just snapping or whatever was happening. So what do you think about the very light topic for your small groups is free will? Do you believe that you have complete agency? How much agency, how much influence do you have over your own reactions, over your own life, over your own views and opinions that are conditioned by the experiences that you've had, the parents that you had, the religions that you were conditioned with, the society that we grow up in? Knowing all of that, we have all of that conditioning is a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight. And the Buddha's teaching on breaking free from habitual reactive tendencies that create suffering. Mindfulness is the intervention. That's the talk. I don't need to do it. That's it. So free will, small groups. Settling into a posture for meditation. Allowing your eyes to be closed, body upright, relaxed. Bring mindfulness into your body, present time, non-judgmental, kind awareness. So what you're feeling right now, what sensations are you aware of? Are there any places of tension, unnecessary tension being held in the face? If the jaw is clenched, release it. If the eyes are squinched, relax them. Release the brow, the jaw, and then check in with your shoulders. Can you allow the shoulders to fall away from the ears a bit more? Check in with the belly, your stomach, is it tight? Can you soften? Can you relax any unnecessary tension in the torso? There's a little bit of tension necessary to stay upright, just to not melt into a puddle, to fight gravity. But releasing all of the unnecessary tension. We begin tonight's meditation with some loving kindness and then shift back to mindfulness. So begin by reflecting on your own deepest wish for happiness, for well-being, ease, that core universal feeling of not wanting to suffer, wanting to be free from suffering, unhappiness, dissatisfaction, stress, fear. The natural desire the healthy desire to be content, to be happy, to be at peace. Knowing that this is something that we all share, this is a universal feeling. However you think about it, phrase it, the wish for happiness, the wish for contentment. To feel safe, to feel secure, to feel at ease. There's some simple phrases that we utilize in this direction called loving kindness, metta, meditation. Begin by bringing to mind somebody who's really easy to love. Someone who inspires, embodies. If you can't think of a person that you know, you can think of an archetype. Sometimes I just think of the Buddha. Extending love and kindness from your heart to theirs. And using the simple phrases, may you be happy. May you be at ease. May you be free from suffering. And all of the causes that lead to suffering. These are the three traditional phrases, and you can remember them pretty simply. May you be happy. May you be at ease. And may you be free. You can also utilize any other phrases that you know or that hold this sentiment of love and kindness. And then shift from offering loving kindness to someone else to offering it to yourself. Shifting from may you be happy to may I be happy. First person, extending love and kindness from your heart to you, to yourself, to your body, your mind, your heart itself. May I be at ease. May I be free from suffering, all of the causes of suffering, the clinging, the aversion, the self-centeredness, identification, taking everything personal. May I be free from suffering. The happiness that we're wishing for is not the kind of happiness where we get what we want all of the time, but the ability to be happy in any conditions, even when life is unpleasant or difficult. Perhaps it's closer to contentment, more connected with radical acceptance. The kind of ease that we're wishing for, likewise, we're not wishing may life be easy all of the time. We're training the heart and mind to be at ease with whatever's happening, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, comfortable or uncomfortable. And likewise, in the kind wish for freedom from suffering, it's not freedom from pain, not freedom from adversity, difficulty, freedom from reacting in such a way that makes it worse. Freedom from the extra layers that we create on top of the already difficult conditions. Part of this practice is learning to be kind to ourselves. Part of it is connecting with the universal condition for all living beings, becoming more kind to each other. The Buddha said, radiate this loving kindness in all directions to all beings, those near by and far away, the young and the old, the weak and the strong, both our friends as well as our foes, the loved and the unloved, with an attitude of kindness, start just here with the group, the Sangha, the people you are meditating with, in person, online. Sending loving kindness to each other. Just as I wish to be happy, I also wish for your happiness. Just as I wish to experience ease, I wish for your ease. Just as I wish to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, I also wish for your freedom. You can broaden the practice to include your friends, your family, your loved ones. You can further expand to include the people that you know but don't like so much, or perhaps even resent, difficult people. People who are suffering so much that they have caused you harm, annoyed you, offended you, hurt you in some way. This radical act of learning to love our enemies, to have compassion for their pain, their ignorance, their confusion, to wish for their happiness and their ease and their freedom. Extending outward in all directions, including all living beings, the whole planet. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at ease. May all beings be free from suffering, the causes, the internal causes of suffering. May you develop so much compassion that you are at ease. May you develop so much non-clinging that you don't suffer. For the last few minutes, you can continue to do loving kindness if you choose to, or you can let go of the phrases and just rest in mindfulness, present time awareness of your own being, your body, your heart, your mind, with a attitude of loving kindness towards the sensations, emotions, thoughts that pass through awareness. The wordless kindness of radical acceptance of yourself just as you are. The mind's tendencies, the body's sensations, the heart's emotions. I guess anybody who starts to contemplate life and what's happening here, why is it like this, maybe has some of these questions about free will and how much control, how much responsibility, how much agency do we have? The Buddha was born into a culture like us that is predominantly theistic, that has assigns a lot of meaning to mysterious theistic powers. The Buddha's culture was not monotheistic like our culture or the world for the last, few thousand years, but polytheistic, but still very much kind of like, well, the God, why is it like this? Well, it's the gods. The gods are unhappy, or the gods are, blessing you or cursing you, or and so that's part of the question is, questioning that. Is that true? Is there some mysterious theistic power that is in charge? The Buddha's own outcome of that investigation was a non-theistic understanding of human psychology, the human mind and body and existence. But interesting for you to think about, for us to think about what we believe is happening here and why we believe that. I'm going to talk about what the Buddha taught, what he believed, what he understood. But I don't always say this, but I think it's important when we're listening to any kind of teaching to contemplate it, rather than like I agree or I disagree, or even when we disagree, looking at like, oh, what is that? What is it that I disagree with? How much have I investigated this? How much have I contemplated this? But that ultimately, everybody gets to figure it out for yourself. What the Buddha figured out 2,600 years ago is good for him. And if it makes sense to us, great. And it inspires us and it helps us, great. But also if it doesn't, I'm certainly not somebody who thinks you have to believe anything. You get to choose what you believe. All of us get to choose what we believe. And what is our direct experience. And Buddhism has only the goal to help alleviate suffering. And so when you contemplate these things, you look at, is it help me alleviate suffering in my life? Does it help me alleviate suffering in the world, to be like the loving kindness that we just did? Is that helpful? Even if it's not easy, right? Sometimes that kind of loving kindness practice for myself was quite uncomfortable in the early years, and didn't make me feel loving or kind, made me feel agitated. But after some time of practicing it, I started to see that actually it did help me become more friendly towards myself and friendly and kind towards others. But that it was a very kind of this topic of conditioning. I had to condition my mind to be kind. My mind in its natural state was not very kind, but I could train it to be kind. So from a Buddhist perspective, I think it's fair to say everything is conditioned. There's a common teaching that everything arises out of the causes and conditions that preceded it. Everything that happens, there's a bunch of shit behind it. Conditions, causes, history, karmic momentum, actions of the past that came to the present. Right now, it's like this is a mindfulness wisdom statement, that acknowledgement so much in mindfulness, we're looking at what's the present like. But it's natural to ask the question, why? Why is it like this? What happened to make us like this? Humanity or culture or societies or just the human condition, human experience. Why are we like this? I guess part of the question is what is it like to be in a body, to be a person, to have a mind, emotions? Part of that's mindfulness, but it's natural, and the Buddha wanted to know himself. He said, why is it like this? Why are we not naturally happy? How come we're not born into bliss and joy and contentment? And the loving kindness phrases, may I be happy, may I be at ease. It's an aspiration because it's not the way it is. I'm not happy all of the time. I'm not at ease all of the time. I'm not free from suffering, but I would like to be. I aspire to be at peace. I'd like to do whatever I can do to experience true happiness, true peace, real freedom, not temporary sense pleasure-based avoidance or material-based, temporary, nothing wrong with sense pleasures and stuff, but probably by the time we find ourselves on a meditation cushion, we've figured it out. The stuff doesn't work. If the stuff worked, I probably wouldn't be here. If I could buy happiness, we probably wouldn't be meditating. But by the time we find ourselves here, we're like, oh shit, it doesn't work. Even though that strong delusion where you think, well, if I had more money, if I had more stuff, if I had more pleasure, better kinds, then maybe that delusion is pervasive. It's actually said that, that feeling of thinking that that happiness exists somewhere else, some grass is greener, if, like that happiness, that the true, that something else could be, there could be something better than this. Anytime you feel like, this is okay, even sometimes you feel like this is pretty good, but there's also that feeling of like, but it could be better. That feeling of it could be better is like the last thing to go before enlightenment from traditional Theravadan Buddhist perspective. That pervasive feeling of looking, it's even that feeling of I'm looking forward to something else rather than being completely content here. That continues. So don't take it personal that your mind is often looking forward to something else rather than dwelling in the contentment of the present. It's natural. When I think about this, I think about it on two levels of the conditioned phenomena. The Buddha, I'm going to read the dependent origination. I'm going to talk a little bit about dependent origination, these 12 connected process that the Buddha talked about. And he's coming just to the core human experience. The question that he's answering is, why do we suffer? What causes suffering in human beings? And important to anybody most of you are very familiar with this, but I think it's important to define that by suffering, he's not asking why is there pain in human life. Pain and suffering are not the same thing. Why do we suffer about the pain in life is the question. It's because this is very important to really get our minds around, to really understand. May I be free from suffering, I said it in the meditation, is not, may I be free from pain. There's no negotiation here with pain. Pain is inevitable and unavoidable, and there's no hope to have a pain-free existence. If you have a nervous system, if you have a mind, a body, if you are incarnated, if you're here, you have pain. And pain everywhere from unpleasant smells and tastes and sights and sensations and emotions and thoughts. All of those are not going anywhere. Even if you become a Buddha, fully enlightened Buddha, this, painting of the archetype of the liberated, fully enlightened Buddha, lots of pain in his life. And our delusion that I could be, oh man, he looks so comfortable. I bet his knees don't hurt at all. Just fucking sitting so still, sitting under that Bodhi tree for, comfortable, happy, pleasant. Our delusion of what enlightenment means, rather than actually just not suffering about all of the pain of sitting on his ass under the tree without a nice chair or a nice cushion. He sat on grass, these kind of bundles of, no matter how much you roll up the bundles of grass, still, ouch. So I think about it on two levels. One, the level that the Buddha is pointing to of kind of the core cause of suffering in human life and the conditions that lead to that. And here's the simple perspective. And here's the answer. Why do we suffer? We suffer because we took birth. If you take birth, the outcome is pain and aversion to pain, pleasure and clinging and craving for pleasure. It's just inevitable. Once you're here, nobody that takes birth has no suffering. Everybody that takes birth has some suffering. Now, the level of that suffering, of our relationship to pleasure and pain and self-centeredness, does vary. And I feel like that's the second piece of the causes and conditions that led to us taking it more personal, being more driven by craving for pleasure or driven by aversion to pain, becoming addicts because of that drive, and some of the conditions in our life and our childhood and our culture and our gender and our race and our religious upbringing, whatever it was, the conditions of this lifetime that influence. It's that, what's that simple way that they talk about it sometimes? Nature versus nurture. Some of the question of dependent origination is nature. The nature of human beings is to crave for pleasure and have aversion to pain and be delusionally identified with the ego as self, as personal. That is nature. That is not your fault. You're not to blame for human nature. Nobody's to blame. You can't be like, yeah, my parents, fuckers, gave birth to me and now I crave pleasure. My shitty childhood. I crave pleasure. I hate pain. That part is just nature. But the nurture, the conditioning, and I think it's more normal when we're talking about our conditioning, the things that we learned, the experiences that we had, the traumas, the adverse life experiences, the societal conditioning, the religious conditioning, the capitalist society, the unbridled fascism, all of the shit that, that's also conditioning in, the patriarchal, sexist, racist culture that we were born into. Conditioned in white supremacy, conditioned in sexism, conditioned in racism. All of us. Everybody that grew up in this culture. And if you're not from this culture, your own cultural, sexist, racist, patriarchal culture, whatever that was like. Also conditioning. But nurture versus just human nature. So I'll jump into and again, this is more in nature. The Buddha's teachings on dependent origination. He said, peace out, Eric. He said, when this exists, that comes to be. So that, like, there's so much here. When this exists, that comes to be. So it's just cause and effect. When this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. And so it's this very general, the beginning of this teaching. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. So just for those first few lines, when craving exists, suffering comes to be. When craving does not exist, suffering doesn't happen, doesn't come to be. The cause of suffering is craving, is clinging. Likewise, when you're having pain, often we think, I'm suffering because I'm in pain, right? I'm uncomfortable. The cause of my unhappiness is the pain, is the discomfort, from the Buddhist perspective, it's not the pain. It's the suffering. When suffering exists, it's because there is aversion to pain. It's not the pain's fault. It's our relationship to the pain's fault. When there is no aversion to pain, there is no suffering about pain. There's just discomfort. And particularly when we meet pain with compassion, then it's just unpleasant sensation met with a soothing, friendly, compassionate response. Suffering depends on clinging aversion to exist. It arises out of clinging and aversion. Make sense? So in that sort of very general, when this is, that comes to be. When aversion is, suffering comes to be. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that ceases. When aversion and craving and self-cherishing, self-centered misidentification with this process as I, me, and mine, when that ceases, suffering ceases. It does not come to be. It arises out of clinging, aversion, and one of the classic ways, Buddhist ways, is it arises out of greed, hatred, and delusion, suffering. Greed, hatred, delusion, in any form, however subtle, equals unhappiness. No greed, hatred, or delusion, no unhappiness. Contentment, ease, well-being. That ceases. So the more specific 12 links he goes into, he says, with ignorance as the condition, formations come to be. So he starts with ignorance. Now, this 12-link section ends with birth. I've always wondered why, because I feel like we could just say, you're born into ignorance. Not your fault. Well, you're born into a mind and body and heart and millions of years of biological evolutionary process that are ignorant to the causes of happiness and are fueled actually by craving and aversion, greed, hatred, and delusion. Not your fault, but ignorance about how to practice non-clinging. We don't know that. We're not born into wisdom. We're born into ignorance. As conditions, formations come to be. With formations as condition, consciousness comes to be. So formations and consciousness here are, this is the beginning process of the human tendency to, consciousness is awareness, but formations are thoughts. But it's also that specific formation, mental formations that create a subject-object duality. Me experiencing the world. I see, I smell, I taste. Subject. Everything is objectified. Does this make sense? Are you follow? I know this is a little Subject, ignorance leads to formations of consciousness that create subject and object, or subject and object. With consciousness as conditioned mentality, materiality comes to be. So the body, the I am this body comes to be. There's ignorance, there's consciousness, there's the subject, object, there's identification with the material body. With mentality, materiality, as conditioned, the six sense spheres come to be. The hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, sensation, and the sixth is the mind. So the six sense spheres come to be. With the six sense spheres as conditioned, contact comes to be. So a lot of you are familiar with this in each sense door, sense sphere, as it's said here, has that which is seen and seeing and being seen. So again, it's subject, object. I see you, you see me, you see each other. You see the paintings. That sense door of sight is being experienced, and there's an I am the object or the subject, and what I'm seeing is the object. Sense spheres, sense objects. Every sound isn't, you don't just kind of think about like sound is present. You know, there's that experience. I am hearing. I am seeing. I am smelling. I am tasting. I am feeling. I am thinking. And there's an identification with the body, the consciousness, and the sense impression that is happening. Following me? Most part? I think we're six in. Six sense spheres as conditioned contact comes to be. With the six sense spheres as conditioned contact, with contact as conditioned, feeling comes to be. So what's being said here is, as soon as you see something, as soon as your eye makes contact with seeing, there's an feeling tone. This is the second foundation of mindfulness. Most of you are familiar with the four foundations. So this is everything that's leading up to that moment of mindfulness of sound, of smell, of taste, of sensation, mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of thoughts and emotions. All of these first things have already, the conditions of, there was ignorance, and there was thoughts, and there was consciousness, and there was identification with the body, the six senses. The six senses made contact, and then it was, I like that. I like the way that smells or tastes, or there's a feeling tone, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Well, actually, I like it's the next one. With contact as conditioned, feeling comes to be. With feeling as conditioned, craving comes to be. So this is the explanation of, if you're in a body and we're in a body that's just fueled by craving. And if it's pleasant, you see something pleasant, I like it, I want it. You see something that's unpleasant, I don't want to see that. You smell something that's pleasant, oh yeah, I like that, I want it, craving. Something that's unpleasant, fucking flush the toilet, close the door. It's disgusting. Get me out of here. It's unpleasant, craving for it to go away. Sensation in your body, sitting in meditation for half hour or however long you're sitting. Your knee starts to hurt, your back, your ass. Automatically, there's that awareness of contact, physical, unpleasant sensation, pain, craving for, I'd be happy if I was comfortable. How can I be at peace over here fucking meditating with my knees hurting? Or my back, or my whatever part of the body is uncomfortable. With contact as condition, feeling comes to be. With feeling as condition, craving comes to be. With craving as condition, clinging comes to be. So this very clear explanation of how we cause suffering, how suffering arises, the conditions that lead to suffering are having a body that craves for pleasure. It's all very impersonal. None of us said, I'm going to sit here, and if I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to dislike it. I'm going to chase pleasure my whole life and run from pain. That's nature. It's not nurture. I mean, some of our nurturing, some of our conditioning. I had a weird childhood with a Buddhist meditation teacher father. And one of the things that I remember is that he, in the beginning of the instructions, I talk about softening. And I can remember when I was a child, my father encouraging me to soften to pain. And I can remember one time in particular where I was standing in front of one of those wall heaters after a shower, and my older sister gave me a little push so that I burned my ass on the wall heater, as siblings do. And I can remember how much pain I was in. And I can remember my father saying, like, yes, it hurts, but also if you tense around it, it makes it worse. Try softening around it. Try breathing into it, and giving me some simple sort of mindful softening, conditioning me. And I think I was, 5 or 6 years old in that memory. And so some of the nurture, right? Like when you're a child and you get hurt and your parents say, shut up and stop crying, and tell you not to feel it, or say, toughen up, tighten around it, right? That conditioning makes our aversion to pain worse. I had some conditioning in my childhood where, I was given some wisdom, and he said, actually, yeah, it fucking hurts, huh? Soften to it. It'll hurt a little bit less. It'll be a little bit worse if you soften to it and meet it with some friendliness, some compassion. That conditioning is also very powerful. Most of us have to come to start learning that now as adults. We weren't taught that. Even though I was taught that, it didn't stop me from a life of drugs and violence and everything else that happened after that. But as I learned this stuff, I was like, oh, that's why my dad was so fucking weird, telling me to soften. Oh, this stuff actually does work. I do have some of that conditioning in there that I can now tap into in my meditation, in my practice. With contact as condition, feeling comes to be. With feeling as condition, craving comes to be. With craving as condition, clinging comes to be. And again, this whole thing, it's happening all by itself. This is just the explanation of each moment of our life. Sense contact, craving, clinging. With clinging as condition, becoming comes to be. I gave a talk a couple weeks ago about becoming. Some of you are here, remember it, or if you didn't, you can catch the recording on YouTube. Becoming identified with it, becoming incarnated as it, becoming with clinging as condition, becoming comes to be. With becoming as condition, birth comes to be. So becoming identified with, and birth, sometimes, I know many people in our community don't love the Buddhist rebirth, reincarnation. But one of the ways, and it might be a little bit more of a Western psychological way, to look at incarnation and rebirth is not lifetime to lifetime, but moment to moment. When we take birth in this moment of I, me, mine. Just walking around throughout my day, not really feeling super self-centered till I stub my toe. And I stub my toe, and that sense feeling of the pain becomes aversion, clinging, becoming, and taking birth as I am in pain. And I fucking hate pain. I have low tolerance for pain. And what's compassion? Taking birth in that moment as angry, as aversive, as suffering. Birth comes to be from that whole process of, that's a kind of a painful example, but maybe it's not painful. You're going around your life, kind of looking at your phone and scrolling on some social media and minding your own business, but then something catches you on that Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever it is, and all of a sudden, craving. I saw something pleasant. I just got a pair of shoes in the mail that I actually had forgot I ordered, because I was looking at something and I saw these shoes, and all of a sudden craving, and all of a sudden click, click, click. And then, a couple weeks later, I was like, oh, fuck. Oh. I got hooked into that moment of craving, of the I saw, the mindset I want, the fingers did the button pushing. It's all set up so easily. You don't have to put your card in or anything. It's already stored in there. Click, 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 purchase. And I, now I've incarnated as somebody with a pair of Bad Brains Vans. I have the Bad Brain Vans from collector's items. And the birth as, I got them. I am them. I've incarnated. With birth as conditioning, then old age, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair all comes into being. So it's sort of where I started, like that kind of, the cheat code here is, why am I suffering? Well, I'm suffering because I took birth. If you take birth, you're going to have all the difficulties of aging and the sorrow of living in a world of ignorance and injustice and oppression. You're going to have all of the grief of living in a world of impermanence where everything ends and everyone dies, and all of that difficulty goes along with birth. You take birth to an impermanent world of ignorance and injustice. It's going to fucking be hard some of the time. It's going to be really unpleasant some of the time. So the intervention is mindfulness. Wisdom. Learning the intervention of not just instantly reacting to what we see and hear and smell and taste and think and feel. Learning through long-term training, even the meditation we did tonight, the loving kindness. If you do that every day for the next couple of decades, your mind will create neural pathways of being more friendly towards yourself and other people, more compassionate towards the suffering in this world, more quick to wish for happiness and ease, even for the difficult people. May you be happy, may you be at ease, may you be free, becomes a mantra, becomes a habit of the mind that we condition the mind to do. Mindfulness of what's happening right now, how does it feel? Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. What's the wise response to this sense door of hearing the helicopters, of seeing the searchlights, of wanting to look out the window? The urban meditation experience. The more we learn mindfulness, the more we then, and so I talked about free will in the small groups. On some level, this is a little too simplistic, but I'll say it anyways. On some level, without mindfulness, very little free will for humans when it comes to this core suffering or not suffering. If you're not mindful, you're just going to habitually cling, crave, take it personal. With mindfulness, long-term mindfulness, a depth of intimacy with how things work and the sense doors, all of them, the seeing and the hearing and the smelling, and particularly the emotional and mental doors, we start to get more choice of this is painful, but rather than clinging and craving and becoming and suffering about it, non-identification, compassion for it. There's an intervention here of a mindfulness-based choice response. It's what has been created as cognitive behavioral and dialectical behavioral skills, all based on the Buddha's 4 foundations of mindfulness. How do we relate to what's happening in the mind and the emotions? And how do we make a wise choice? Without meditation, I don't think it's possible. But with long-term meditation, training, building these, it becomes more and more ability to choose. And I don't know that I would even go to complete free will, but I feel like we have more and more influence. More and more. And maybe the enlightened Buddhas have total agency of how they choose to respond. But what I've seen in my own life over the last 37 years of meditation practice and studying of Buddhism is that I've gained more ability, more influence over how I respond. I don't do it perfectly all of the time, but I've seen a great improvement in the ability to have compassion rather than aversion, to have non-clinging rather than clinging. I don't always click through, just sometimes. Sometimes I still get hooked. Sometimes I still get mad. All of those things for sure still happen, but so much less than they did before mindfulness taught me how to relate to the underlying feeling tone of the sense impression, the sense contact, including the mind as a sense contact. Everything that arises in our mind, all of our emotions are sense contact. With mindfulness, some choice, some discernment. Is this a wise thought? Is this a trustworthy advice my mind is giving me? And so often being able to be like, nope, it sure isn't. My mind's giving me really bad advice again, with some sense of humor of like, big surprise. Oh, I'm giving myself bad advice again. My mind is actually encouraging me to suffer about something. Anytime our mind is saying, hey, you should suffer about this, it's not wisdom. That's not the wisdom mind. That's the confused part of the mind. That's the ignorant part of the mind. And acknowledging that and seeing that and saying like, actually, is there a way to not suffer about this, to have compassion for it, to let go? Can I let go of the suffering that is happening here? Sometimes the humble answer is, I'm not there yet. I read the book and I know what to do, but I can't do it yet. That's okay. Have that humility, keep trying, see that over the years of practice, we get better at it. Slowly, slowly. I love to quote His Holiness the Dalai Lama that said, commit to your practice. This shit works, commit to it. Check in on your progress once every decade or so. Once every decade or so, really see, am I more compassionate? Am I less attached? Am I less self-centered? Am I seeing more clearly after these 10 years of serious practice? Don't expect it after 10 days or 10 weeks or 10 months. Expect maybe incremental, tiny, but really these skills, this liberation is a lifetime, a long-term practice. And having that humility to be like, I'm going to keep doing it even though I can't do it perfectly yet. Keep going. So the flip side of dependent origination is dependent cessation. So the Buddha in this teaching just flips it as I did in the beginning. He said, now with the remainderless fading cessation or absence of that very ignorance, comes the cessation of formations. The cessation of formations comes the cessation of consciousness. With the cessation of consciousness comes the cessation of mentality and materiality. With the cessation of mentality and materiality comes the cessation of the six sense spheres. With the cessation of the this is a tongue twister. Six sense spheres comes the cessation of contact. With the cessation of contact comes the cessation of feeling. With the cessation of feeling comes the cessation of craving. The cessation of craving comes the cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging comes the cessation of becoming. With the cessation of becoming comes the cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, then old age and death and sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair all cease. Such is the cessation of this entire mass of suffering. And maybe we can look at that of cessation of birth, of identification in this lifetime. This is also talking about actually entering the deathless, getting to nirvana, getting to the place where you're not reincarnating into this sickness, aging, and death party over and over. So it is talking about rebirth as well as moment to moment cessation of self-centeredness. I, me, mine. So some thoughts about the 12 links of dependent origination and the conditioned reality that we all live in, and a huge encouragement to understand and to consider mindfulness is the intervention, the heart practices are the intervention. What we learn in Buddhism of developing compassion, developing non-attachment, developing loving kindness, we can train our mind to stop creating suffering for us. We can do, that's what these tools are. That's what these practices are. And we can undo the religious ignorance that we were conditioned with. We can undo the societal, patriarchal, racist, homophobic confusion that our society lives and breathes. But it takes very intentional, conscious investigation and acknowledging of those racist conditionings and those sexist conditionings and those homophobic, transphobic, whatever. It's in there because it's societal. Nobody escapes. But through mindfulness, we can see it, acknowledge it, and be like, oh, I don't actually believe that, but my mind has been conditioned to think that way. That's not wisdom, that's ignorance. I don't want to follow that. Okay, that's enough of soapbox for tonight. I went so far, I don't even really have time for questions. I'm just going to make some announcements. I have a day-long class, meditation day here. I think it's 9 a.m., 9 or 10? 9 to 3 or 4? 9 to 3. We'll do sitting meditation, talking about this conditioning and our ability to train the mind. Hour and a half class once a week is great. Going on retreats is important. Doing a day every quarterly, I'm offering an opportunity for you to come in. We'll do sitting meditation. We'll do walking meditation. We'll have a whole day of practicing, of training our minds in this way. I'm hosting it because I'm doing it online for the Refuge Recovery community. But Against the Stream and Refuge Recovery are connected, and I'm doing it here at Against the Stream. You're all invited. It's not going to be a heavy recovery teaching thing. It's going to be a meditation day. I might talk a little bit about Refuge Recovery, but mostly we're just going to be practicing. So everybody's welcome. You can register for that on refugerecovery.org. There is a suggested registration fee of $50 for the day that goes to support that nonprofit organization. You can also offer Donna donations to me for that. But there's also a way to register for that for free if you don't have $50 and you want to come and practice. It is a donation-based, open to everyone day. Or if you have abundance and you want to scholarship some people, you can donate more than $50 to help others who can't afford it. So it's one of those opportunities, like our Monday nights, where no one's turned away for lack of fees. Everyone's welcome. But we are a donation-based community, so please be generous. Consider when you drop in on Mondays, consider what you spend your money on. Consider what you pay for a movie. I went and saw a movie the other night, $25. If you can afford to see a movie, maybe you can afford to make a $25 donation here. And then look, and then if you can't, if you're like, oh yeah, I buy $7 coffees, but I give $2 donations, looking at that kind of priority in your life, seeing, if you can. If you can and you feel moved to, please consider being generous and really supporting the center and helping us continue to have this no fee-based generosity offered meditation class. The other thing is there is a few spots left for the Sri Lanka pilgrimage, November 10th through 24th. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I'm taking a group of, looks like probably about 20 people to Sri Lanka for 2 weeks, where we'll visit sacred Buddhist sites and we'll have some retreat time and we'll have some beach time. And it's a mixture of practice and travel adventure. It's not like you're going to go and be on retreat the whole time. You're going to be traveling and enjoying a culture and getting in the ocean a bit and getting to get close to some elephants and all that shit too. Not just a retreat. Part of our intention is to be of service and engagement, and George has a brief announcement about that.
Hi, good evening. Most of you know, a few of us started a group called Off the Cushion. We're trying to get involved, get active, make the world a better place. One thing is the sock drive. I think this will be wrapping up at the end of the month. So if you are out shopping and have a few extra bucks, buy a pack of socks. Short the box. I think we've got, what did we say, almost 200 pairs? We've got like 200 pairs of socks already, which is pretty awesome. But early next month, we'll work on distributing these. There's still ice raids going on, and we still have some flyers. If ice stops you in public, they'll be at the front desk. Feel free to take them, stick them up in your neighborhood, on telephone poles, and wherever else you think they could be of help. We're going to have a meeting the last Wednesday of the month in person, also on Zoom. And I think we're working, trying to figure out something with the Westside Food Bank, and so that'll be our action for next month, I'm hoping. So if you're interested and you want to get involved, come talk to me afterwards.
I forget anything, Sebastian? All right. May any goodness that comes from our practice be shared outward in all directions with all beings in existence. May each of us get as free as possible in this lifetime. And together may we create a positive change on this planet.